How's it going, everyone? I want to talk about how internal combustion engines are getting banned. Now, a government, a different one, is doing the exact opposite, the unthinkable, which is actually thinking of banning electric vehicles. So now the Swiss government, they're thinking of banning the electric cars from the country's roads if the energy crisis worsens. In the event that Switzerland runs out of electricity this winter, of course, then non-essential journeys using electric vehicles are going to be completely prohibited, which is pretty wild. So the government fears that there could be a huge shortage with everything happening in Ukraine and Russia, energy war and all that jazz. Now this is actually pretty interesting because Switzerland actually gets about 60% of their energy from hydroelectric power stations. But given the nature of climate there, they have all 4 seasons there. So given the nature of climate, they can't fully be dependent on their own production of energy, hence some of those imports. 30% comes from nuclear facilities, but the government is already committed to getting rid of those. They're phasing that stuff out, just like a lot of other places. They're really smart people. They do provide enough energy to keep the lights on for the most part within their own infrastructure, but they're still dependent on the outside sources given the nature of the seasons. So apparently stats show that all their energy needs are currently met, but they're not dumb people. They want to make sure the lights are not going to go off. So apparently water in the country provided by rain, melting snow, feeding into the rivers, is actually enough to meet the needs and generate hydroelectric power for the whole country, which is pretty amazing. But of course, these are smart people. They don't want the lights to go off. They don't want to freeze to death. So the river levels can go up and down. As the river levels drop in the colder months, then that's when some of this reliance on imported energy starts to come and take place. But what happened in quite a number of regions in the world is that they actually had a lot less rain. So this past summer was exceptionally dry in Europe, here in the United States as well, and it has actually caused a lot of the water levels to drop in lakes and rivers. What happens? Well, less electricity has been generated through the hydroelectric power plants. What makes the Swiss so smart is that they're actually able to generate enough power that they're able to import some of their power to neighboring countries like France and Germany. Very smart people. As a result of the Ukraine conflict, though, the European nations have suffered, of course, a massive loss of the Russian gas supplies. Switzerland is not reliant, though, on supplies from Russia, which is very smart of them. So being the intelligent people that they are the Swiss aware of something that the rest of the people, the rest of the countries are not aware of? So apparently they drawn up a plan, which is pretty wild, the government of Switzerland, to combat a crazy energy scenario. This includes, opening hours of shops being cut by 2 hours each day. On top of that, nightclubs, they'll be instructed to turn off their heating. That's pretty wild. Temperatures in other buildings will be limited to a max of 20 degrees Celsius, roughly 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Further measures include sporting facilities and even stadiums being forced to just totally shut down, close down. Christmas lights are off. That's kind of sad. And streaming services, gaming consoles, being banned. It's so bizarre. All this stuff is just to avoid blackouts. They don't want to run energy reserves completely dry, And this is all regardless of them not being reliant on Russian energy imports, which is pretty wild. But of course, the biggest kind of shocking news is that the EVs will be banned from making non-essential journeys, which is very interesting. And they plan on implementing this stuff sort of in a staggered way, depending on their energy needs and energy consumptions and energy reserves. One interesting part is that the emergency response has has two tiers, okay? There's emergency and crisis, 3 levels of restrictions in the first and 2 in the second. And that's what makes this whole thing kind of interesting. Switzerland is a tiny country, so their energy needs are not very grave, they're not very dire, they're not as large as some of the needs, let's say, of Germany. So if, it's the fan, even if it hits the fan, even crypto mining will be banned, will be stopped. But again, these are all just in extreme situations, extreme shortages, and for the most part, it's going to be about leisure businesses like the stadiums, the nightclubs, concerts, etc., etc. Very wild stuff coming out of Switzerland. And again, this is all while California is banning the gas cars. So it's an interesting approach, and it's the exact opposite of what some people here are doing. So what makes all this very interesting is that there's a new report by the US government, the US Census Bureau, okay, that they have actually more than doubled last month, more than doubled their imports of Russian goods. So according to the US Census Bureau, in September, for example, they imported $330 million worth of goods from Russia. But now, last month in October, they imported $730-something million worth of goods. That's more than double. But from a year ago, okay, pre-Russia-Ukraine chaos, it's down considerably. It was, back in the day, roughly in the billions, $2.5 billion last year, which is a staggering amount. But regardless, why would they more than double the shipments last month, okay, when they're basically putting up sanctions left and right towards Russia? Here's the thing that they've been importing the most. It's actually, according to the Census Bureau, fertilizers, okay? They were the largest U.S. imports from Russia last month, the imports surpassing even those seen prior to the whole Ukraine-Russia chaos. Other imports include iron, steel, metals, and it just goes to show that fertilizer is absolutely essential. They're the second producer, second with Ukraine and Russia, they're the second largest producers of fertilizer for the whole world. And this stuff is absolutely essential for basic human survival. Guess why? Produce food. That's a big deal. No food production, people are going to be mad. They're going to be angry. They're going to be hangry. And they're going after the politicians if they're starving to death. Nobody wants that. So the U.S., boom, imported tons of this stuff. Massive. So that's it for now. Just a quick little video on energy and what has been happening. Pretty interesting stuff with Switzerland banning EVs, potentially. Anyway, so thanks for watching, guys. Smash like, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one.
Can anybody out there hear me?